One day, your heart will stop. For most of your life, you never think about that moment. And when you do, you picture a switch. 1 second you're here, the next you're gone. Death as a single, clean instant. But that's not how it works. Death is slow. It's not a door slamming shut. It's a door slowly closing. And for a few minutes after your heart stops, you are not fully gone. You are somewhere in between. Most people think dead is dead. Doctors don't. Because in 1928, a Soviet scientist kept a severed dog's head alive on a table. No body, just a head, blinking, reacting, wired to a machine. And by the end of this, you'll understand something terrifying. Death isn't a moment, it's a deadline, and we keep moving it. So let's start with what actually happens when you die. Your heart stops pumping, blood stops moving, and here's the key. Your cells don't die instantly. They die slowly as they run out of oxygen. Your brain is the hungriest of all. It starts taking damage after about 4 to 6 minutes without blood, but damaged is not gone. For those few minutes, your brain is still sitting there, intact, waiting. This is the gap doctors call clinical death. Your heart has stopped, but you haven't truly ended yet. Real, final death, biological death, comes later, when the cells break down for good. And that gap, that small window, is where the whole story lives. Because if you could restart the heart inside that window and get oxygen back to the brain, in theory, the person comes back. So the question became obvious: how far can you push that window? And in the early 1900s, one man went much too far to find out. His name was Sergei Bryukhonenko, a Soviet scientist who had watched his country drown in death, war, famine, millions gone. And he became obsessed with one idea. What if a machine could do the heart's job? So he built one. He called it the autojektor. It was a primitive heart-lung machine, 2 pumps and a glass chamber. It pulled blood out of a body, filled it with oxygen, warmed it, and pushed it back in. A mechanical heart and lungs outside the body. And to prove it worked, he did something straight out of a nightmare. In 1928, he placed a dog's severed head on a table. He connected it to the autojector, and the head came back. Its eyes blinked. When he shone a light at it, it reacted. When he touched its nose, it flinched. A head with no body, alive for around 100 minutes. It was later shown to the world in a 1940 film called Experiments in the Revival of Organisms. And it terrified everyone who saw it. But here's what's important. It wasn't a trick of the dead, it was proof of something. If you supply blood and oxygen, the line between alive and dead starts to blur. But that was a head on a machine. Could you bring back a whole body after it had truly died? For that, we crossed the ocean to America, and to a scientist they called a real-life Frankenstein. His name was Robert Cornish, a genuine prodigy. He finished university at 18 and had a doctorate by 22, and in the 1930s he became fixated on raising the dead. His method sounds insane, but follow it. He took dogs that had been put to death. He injected them with adrenaline and a drug to stop the blood from clotting. Then he strapped them to a seesaw, and he rocked it up and down. Why? To force the blood to move through the body again, like a manual heart. In May 1934, he tried it on 5 fox terriers. He named every single one of them Lazarus, after the man in the Bible who rose from the dead. The first 3 didn't make it, but Lazarus the 4th and Lazarus the 5th, after their hearts had been stopped for several minutes, came back. They breathed again. Their hearts beat again. They had crossed back over the line. But here's the part that should stay with you. They were not okay. They were blind. They couldn't stand. They could barely crawl. Cornish had pulled them back from death, but he hadn't pulled back all of them. Their brains had sat too long without oxygen, and that damage doesn't undo. This is the brutal truth nobody tells you. Coming back isn't free. The longer the brain waits in the dark, the less of you returns. Cornish believed it could work on humans too. He even asked to try it on an executed prisoner. The authorities said no. And maybe that was mercy, because what would come back? So now you understand the real enemy. It's not death itself, it's time. It's that 4 to 6 minute clock ticking inside your skull, and for decades, that clock seemed unbeatable. But then came a woman who broke it. Imagine you are her. It's 1999. You're skiing in Norway. You fall through a layer of ice into freezing water. You're trapped under the ice, headfirst, for 80 minutes. Her name was Anna Bågenholm. By the time they pulled her out, her heart had stopped. Her body temperature had crashed to 13.7 degrees Celsius. The lowest ever survived at the time. She was, by every normal definition, dead for hours. But the doctors said something extraordinary. They refused to call her dead until she was warm. They slowly heated her blood using a heart-lung machine. And after 9 hours, her heart started beating again. On its own, she woke up. And eventually, she fully recovered. She went back to work at the very hospital that saved her. So how was that possible? How was she dead for hours and still came back? Cold. The cold had slowed everything down. When her body froze, her brain barely needed any oxygen. So the clock that normally runs out in minutes stretched into hours. There's a saying in emergency medicine now: you're not dead until you're warm and dead. Read that again. It means the line we thought was fixed was never fixed at all. And we have been quietly moving it ever since. Every time someone does CPR, they're manually keeping that window open. Every defibrillator that shocks a heart back is reaching into that gap. Anna's case helped create a real treatment called therapeutic hypothermia. Doctors now deliberately cool some patients down to buy the brain more time, to slow your death on purpose so they can reverse it. But the line didn't stop moving there. In 2019, scientists at Yale did something that should not have been possible. They took the brains of pigs that had been dead for 4 hours, and they pumped a special oxygen-rich fluid through them, and cells that were supposed to be long gone started working again, not consciousness. The scientists made sure of that. But the basic machinery of the brain flickered back to life 4 hours after death. Hours. The thing we were taught dies in minutes. So let's come back to you, and to the one moment you can't avoid. Your whole life you've believed death is a finish line, a single second where everything switches off. But it was never a line, it's a fade, a slow, quiet closing of a door, and for over 100 years we've been jamming our foot in that door, stretching minutes into hours, turning dead into not yet. A severed dog's head blinked on a table. A dog named Lazarus crawled back from nothing. A frozen woman returned after her heart sat silent for hours. None of them rewrote one rule. They just moved the line. And the line is still moving. So here's the thought to take to bed tonight. One day, your heart will stop. And for a few minutes after, you'll be in that gray space. Not alive, not gone, just waiting, in the dark, behind a closing door, and whether you come back won't be up to you. It'll depend on who's standing over you, and on how far we've managed to push the line. By the time it's your turn,